The 28th edition of the African Cup of Nations kicked off this week, and so far there have been a bit of mixed results. Welcome to the MTN Football Webcast. I'm your host, Busoma Zbogo. Alongside me is Dwayne Deloka. Group A has been taking place, the games have been taking place in Bata, and there have been a few surprises. I mean, the big surprise of the tournament so far has to be Zambia beating Senegal, as well as Equatorial Guinea defying all the skeptics who didn't really give them a chance coming up into this tournament, and also getting a win. Tell us your thoughts about those two games.
Well, I suppose most people are going to be suggesting that Group A was the group of surprises. Certainly Senegal, pre-tournament favourites for many going into their opening encounter, and losing, of course, to Zambia. But Zambia, they were never going to be outsiders in this game. They played the type of football that could always hamper Senegal. They like to break down in the middle of the park, and they certainly hit on counter-attacks. And with a team like Senegal not having a great defence, it was never really going to be a question of would Senegal concede. You knew they were going to concede. The question was, would they be able to score more goals than their opponents? On the night, turned out to be not the case. I still don't think their hopes of advancing past the group stages are done and dusted. Far from it. I, in fact, believe that they're going to go through with Zambia. On the other hand, though, I mean, Zambia is almost relying on sentiment. Bear in mind, this is a side that very strongly believes that they're here to win this African Cup of Nations for the team that went down in the plane crash of 1993. It was off the coast of Gabon, and it was on their way to Senegal for a World Cup qualification match. And of course, playing against Senegal in Gabon, or in Equatorial Guinea, in the Gabon Equatorial Guinea Africa Cup of Nations, all the more purposeful for the Zambians. For the host nation, though, it was a case of, yes, they rose to the occasion. They were punching above their weight by playing against Libya, but with all the struggle that Libya has been through, you've got to ask questions about their readiness mentally and indeed physically on the pitch. Libya certainly weren't up to the game. They looked like they were going to try to grind out a goalless draw. They've got a very obstinate defence. They don't have many goal scorers. But for Equatorial Guinea, it took a moment of magic from a real star. I mean, Javier Balboa, formerly on the books of Real Madrid. This is a man that can play in any league anywhere in the world if he puts his mind to it. And of course, it would come down to him to curl in that brilliant effort 3 minutes from time to decide it. A bit of a shock if you look at the world rankings, but I suppose given the home advantage, the sentiment involved, and of course that wonderful carrot that was dangled in front of the players, $1 million to be shared courtesy of President Obiang's son, well, that's a pretty big carrot to be chasing after, and they got it.
Moving on to Group B, where the games have been taking place in Malabo, we saw Ivory Coast make heavy weather of their victory over Sudan, and then we saw a fantastic game between Angola and Burkina Faso. Fantastic Manucho strike to settle it. Your thoughts on those games?
Well, it wasn't just a spectacular Manucho strike to settle it, but an absolutely superb free kick from Alain Traoré to even bring Burkina Faso level in the game. It really was a thrilling game, though, after Matias, of course, had given Angola the lead. Manucho scoring the decisive goal in that game, but it was a match that was end-to-end. Two teams that really looked like they wanted to go out for the win. And why wouldn't they? The winner of this match almost, of course, guaranteed passage through to the last stage of the competition. That's at least how these two teams were seeing it. They were fairly evenly matched. In the middle of the group, Sudan, the lowly ranked team at 120th in the world, and of course, Cote d'Ivoire ranked as the top African team inside the top 20 at 18th. So many expecting Sudan to finish last and Cote d'Ivoire to finish top. The winner of Burkina Faso and Angola was always going to be the team that would have their eye on that quarter-final place. And at the moment, it looks like Angola are the team to do it, particularly after their first round encounter. For Cote d'Ivoire, however, it was very much a stuttering start for them. They looked like at times they just needed to do enough to get past Sudan. And that's all they did. It wasn't the case of we're going to go out and show just how powerful we are. Unlike a Senegal attack that'll score 7, 8, 9 goals in a game, Cote d'Ivoire very seldom do that these days. They rather do 2-0 if they can, 1-0 if they need to. But let's give credit to Sudan. They were unyielding in defence, and even really came back at Cote d'Ivoire at stages. I mean, El Taib and Bashir both hit the woodwork, both forced Bari into saves, especially in the second half of the match after they'd already gone down. So credit to Sudan the way they played, but also Cote d'Ivoire, too much class, too much power, really too much quality on paper. They need to pick up their game, though, once they're out of the group stages. That'll be the main concern for the Elephants.
Well, Cote d'Ivoire will have to raise their performance if they're hoping to walk away with the title at the end of this tournament. Well, moving on to Group C, which the games are taking place in Libreville. Firstly, Morocco, a game of missed chances for them. They went down to Tunisia, as well as co-host Gabon, looking fantastic going up front against Niger. Your thoughts on this group?
Well, first and foremost, I got to say that Gabon were absolutely spectacular. I thought they played out of their socks. The wing play was unbelievable. Muele down that far side flank continued to absolutely rip the Niger left flank apart. And it was just fantastic to see in terms of sheer footballing, this buccaneering prowess from the host nation who had prepared, I thought, a little or not quite enough for this tournament, but they looked great. Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, he and his brother Willie, both part of the build-up to the squad. Willie dropped for the African Cup of Nations there, but Pierre-Emerick playing out of his socks in the opening game, scoring the opening goal of the game. He was the man that forced the header to be saved from Kasali Dauda before it was poked home by Stefan Ngema to give Gabon that 2-0 victory. But take nothing away from Niger, tournament debutants and perhaps some nerves at stake. Maybe they can settle and claim something out of the group as their round continues or as their tournament continues. But in the other match, though, the North African derby was always going to be a very much heated affair. Unfortunately for Morocco, though, this African Cup of Nations jinx continues. They find themselves still with only one victory in the African Cup of Nations since they finished as runners-up back in 2004, ironically against Tunisia. Tunisia, though, took their chances when it counted, and that's ultimately all they needed to do. But you know it's not unite when people like Marwan Shamakhan and legends like the veteran Yusuf Haji start missing golden opportunities where literally goalkeeper standing at his mercy, time aplenty, and he can't even place his shot on target. You've got to ask questions. While they eventually did pull one back through the captain Kharja, it was certainly not a consummate performance from Morocco. Tunisia, though, romping, I would say, with their style of play, especially after they'd scored that opening goal, to a rather comfortable victory.
And moving into the final group, Group D, where the games have been taking place in Franceville, a spirited performance from Botswana making their debut in the African Cup of Nations. They went down to the tournament favourites, Ghana. And a fantastic performances from Guinea, who were unlucky to lose to Mali by 1-0. Your thoughts on this final group?
Well, Group D is really an interesting group because Ghana, like many of the pre-tournament favourites, have failed to quite live up to the expectations leading into this tournament. Ghana certainly scraping to a 1-0 victory. Yes, they were down to 10 men, but that came courtesy of the goal scorer. And John Mensah scored the goal 25 minutes in, red card 65 minutes in. Botswana, though, played with a great deal of courage in the second half. They were competitive, they were incisive, and in fact, they were very unlucky not to find an equalising goal were it not for a piece of acrobatic brilliance from John Boye. Keeper beaten, Muimeri Muatlapeng, header on target, keeper absolutely nowhere. John Boye from pretty much scrambling, jumps up in the air and kicks the ball off the line spectacularly. He was eventually named man of the match, John Boye, his first African Cup of Nations performance, and it turned out to be a great one indeed for the Ren defender. As for the other game in Franceville, this Group D encounter between Mali and Guinea was always going to come down to the winner of this match. Great chance of advancing to the last stage of the tournament once again, because in a group with the likes of Ghana, surely one of Guinea and Mali are going to be losing out in a place in the last 8 of this tournament. Botswana, not to say that they don't get a chance, but certainly that was the battle that was on. Mali proved they wanted it more. They got the goal that they needed to by Traore with a deflected effort from just outside the area. Very powerful, but nothing much that the Guinea keeper could do about it. I think in terms of keepers, though, Diakite in the Mali goal was absolutely outstanding. Eventually named man of the match. Spectacular saves to deny Ismail Bangura, not once, not twice, but throughout the match. And to even save a Pascal Fendunu free kick late on in the match certainly spelled the death knell for this Guinea side that tried hard but ultimately didn't have enough firepower on the night. It was a great game of football. Unfortunately for Guinea, it was not a great result.
15 goals in 8 games, and with the most remarkable fact is that we have yet to see a draw in the opening round. Catch the rest of the action of this tournament on MTN Football